Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 718 proudly brings to you Let the Minutes Reflect. My name is Sean Hardy, and thank you for joining me today. And today's guest is someone I've known for over 20 years, from our days in college to our respective rises in the advertising and marketing industry. We were groomsmen in each other's weddings, and we once spent 15 consecutive hours at a craps table. Morris Martin, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're data guys. Of course, we spent 15 hours at a crap table.
Oh man, I was actually telling someone that story the other day, and it's like, "How did that happen?" I was like, "Well, we kept winning. What do you want from us?"
It's fairly easy.
Like, if you're not winning, you spent 15 hours at a crap table.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. But yes, thank you for being here today. I appreciate the time. And as I said in the intro, we have many things in common. We're both from the Bronx. We both work in advertising and marketing, and neither of us have a degree in advertising or marketing. My degree is in political science, and yours is in information systems. So,
That's correct.
how did an information systems major end up as an executive at an ad agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. By happenstance. So I went to the Drexel University, the Drexel Dragons, and as much as I love my college institution, they had a silly system in which to pair graduating seniors with jobs. Companies were allowed to put in prerequisites, if you will, to even apply for an opportunity with them. So there were many common companies, which I won't name, that put in, you had to have 3.8, you had to have this, you had to have that. And, college for me was, a little different than I guess the average college person, I suppose. And so I actually was restricted from applying for a lot of the jobs that I was, educated to do, which again was a completely silly system to me. And so I ended up landing an opportunity at an agency, and I always say God works in mysterious ways, and that started my career because it was a great opportunity for me to start at the ground level of an agency as a trafficker, if you will, which means I was the person that matched ads with sites that they go on, heavy Excel, et cetera. And that launched my career. So I'm thankful to Drexel for stopping me from becoming an IT expert and allowed me an opportunity to become a marketing executive.
So I actually did not announce your title. So your current title is you are
It's
the
a,
executive vice president of data and. Well, go
it's
ahead.
a I did not come up with this title, by the way. It's a little known fact. It's an egregious title, but it's the executive vice president of data intelligence, tech engineering, and marketing ops. Which, all that to be said, basically executive vice president of data and tech.
Okay, uh, so you start off at doing ad trafficking,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
from there you move up the ladder, and then you move from ad trafficking to you actually go to the publisher side, to the sales side, for a bit, and there is this stigma about going to the publisher side, going to sales, where it's like always be closing and cold calling people and things like that. And I think that deters a lot of people. What was
Mhm.
the transition like for you, moving from being data guy to the person that's looking to close the deal or seal the deal, or just
Yeah,
even maintain a relationship?
yeah, that's a great question. So I actually went to ad tech platform side at a company by the name of Atlas, and I did account management. So I've actually worked in pretty much every aspect of the ad tech lumiscape that you can be in. I was in product management, product marketing, analytics. To your point of when did I get into sales? Funny story about that. I don't share this often, so you're getting an exclusive here. I had no interest in going in sales, zero. I was like, the idea of cold calling, which I perceived as cold calling, seemed, I just did not want to do that. I was happy being the person that the sales lead brought to meetings until I found out that the salesperson made 2 to 3 times more than I was making. And I said, what? Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. I was like, you got the meeting, and I'm presenting the entire meeting, and you're getting two, three. Now, with all due respect to all the sales folks, thank you for bringing me to the meeting. But and there's obviously a skill in managing the relationships and getting the meeting that's absolutely valid. But I thought the disparity of compensation was a little odd. So I said, you know what, I can do sales. I'm gonna try sales. And one of my mentors at the time had told me that the combination of my technical aptitude with the fact that I wasn't a robot in meetings, which unfortunately a lot of technical people get stereotyped into, and that I was able to cultivate genuine relationships, that the combination would be a good one for sales. And it actually worked out really well for me and led me to some additional opportunities. But yeah, I don't share that story often, but when I found out that the salesperson was making quite a bit more coin, if you will, I said, no, let me try sales. Let me see. 'Cause I'm not afraid to fail. Let me see if I can do it. And so it worked out.
It's funny you said I'm not afraid to fail because I think that's something that affects a lot of people. It's, what if this goes wrong? What if I mess up? What if I, obviously, worst case scenario, what if I get fired? Um, where did you, was there a moment where you realized that, your fear of failure went away? Or is that something you've always had ever since you were like a kid?
Yeah, I've always had a healthy fear of failure, but there's a number of things I can say to that. Number one, you know, when as we interacted and engaged with people in this industry, and we grew up blocks apart, and I share some of the stories of how we grew up, where we grew up. It's shocking to people that we are I don't know, employed, like that we are like doing well because we grew up in a tough environment. And when I see my son, when I first moved to, we'll get to Atlanta later. When I first moved to Atlanta and took my son to tour some of the schools, and I saw that they had greenhouses and chicken coops and whatnot, and I'm like, man, we were in a lot of cases terrified or stressed out rather, just getting on the train and bus every day because we had to deal with all of the things that came with growing up in the neighborhoods that we did. So I look at that as my anchor to say that if we survive that, a mistake here, a mistake there, unfortunate, but doesn't really bother me. Doesn't I don't get phased by much.
So you were talking about your son looking at schools. That's a perfect segue to my next question. Recently, you were on the Will Smith's Instagram show, Dash Just Don't Understand. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen that, make sure after this episode, go check that out. It's on Instagram. Uh, and first, of all, I want to say I felt very attacked by the gun show that was going on in in that show. But you're a physically fit human being, and I think that's good. I think we should celebrate that. But uh,
I
tell
got
us
a lot
about
of
how
flack.
did this.
A lot of flack. A lot of flack.
Well, I mean, listen,
I,
man.
I was
Listen.
accused. I was accused of putting on baby oil before barbecuing with my son. Excuse me for wanting to be lotioned before I
Listen,
go
sometimes
outside.
listen, as black man, you gotta make sure you moisturize your situation.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it. But how did that opportunity come about, and did it? What did appearing on that show mean to you as a father?
Yeah. So I had been, I post videos of me and my son, or my son and I, rather, Dallas, doing stuff all the time. One of those things was now living in the South, wanting to learn how to barbecue grill. And I figured this was a great opportunity for me and him to learn it together because he wants to help daddy, be daddy's helper, what have you. And so we had done 4 or 5 different projects, if you will, a brisket, pork belly, Boston butt, things like that. And I posted it and shared it, and some acquaintances, friends rather, our producers on the show, and they caught wind of my videos, what have you, and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in sharing some of these videos because we're doing a show about highlighting Black fathers?" And I had no idea that Will Smith was going to post it. I honestly really thought it was just going to be some show that existed in the ethos, and probably had a few viewers and what have you. Obviously, would share it with friends and family. Zero idea that Will Smith himself was going to post it. Zero idea that Kev on stage. I didn't. To be honest, I didn't really wasn't familiar with his comedic work. Obviously, a comedic genius, and when I didn't know like I was going to be speaking to him, and so he appeared on camera, and I'm speaking to him, which was probably a good thing. So I probably would have acted weird if I knew he was like famous or whatever. So so that's how it came about. Those were genuine moments. They weren't, doing it for the gram or anything of that nature. Those were just like, hey, look, me and my son are doing something cool. That was important for me because, as I shared in my early childhood, that I grew up without a dad, and that was looking back on it very, very. I mean, when you're growing up, you don't really realize it because you can't miss something that's not there. So it's just like, yeah, it's just me and my mom.
Mhm.
And but now that I have a son, it was like, wow, I'm going to do all the things that was never really done with me. But in doing that, it's not about acts. It's not about like I got to go to the circus every week. I got to go, to places, amusement parks, and like all that stuff will come naturally. It's just about what things can I find to do with my son that just are moments in time. And what choked me up about watching watching the segment rather, was the montage. I'm all about montages because Rocky Four is one of my favorite movies. But the montage, like
Mhm.
when we record these videos, and you do the same, and we have we have our fraternity, but we also have a fraternity of fathers that give each other advice and post things. But when we post it as a moment in time. Like, oh, this was a funny moment. Like yesterday, we did a puzzle together, just posted it. Or 2 weeks ago, we did this
Mhm.
together, just posted it. When you see them combined into a montage, oh man, it choked me up because it
Mhm.
was like, wow, I felt, by no means am I done, but I felt, wow, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that felt good.
So in the show, you had said that I think Kev once stated asked you. I forget exactly what the question was, but I think it was like a piece of advice you would give to fathers, and you
Mm-hmm.
said advice is to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, obviously, I mean, obviously, there's being there for your children, like being there, but like, can you dive a little bit more into what that means?
Yeah, sometimes I laugh at myself because the advice I give is, and I give professionally and I give personally, is so simple. And I kind of like, I just laugh because it's like, be present. Wow, that sounds so simple, but it's harder than you think. We are we're working full-time jobs. You know, I know myself and many of my friends are diehard sports fans. We have our own hobbies. We have our own individual things that we like to do, and so time goes fast. And if you don't pay attention, you'll miss your children growing up. And so this pandemic, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, obviously significantly unfortunate, but fortunate in the stance that I get to spend a ridiculous amount of time with my son. Probably out of the ordinary, right? Because I'm in the office working, from start to finish, probably 12 hours. And so I'm able to see him when he comes home from school, see him in the morning, spend a lot more time with him. And so being present, I can't imagine not being present for him. And so, it's that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. Though he still loves mommy.
All right, so
It's a
we're gonna
mommy's
switch gears
world.
now. Of course, it's yeah, it's like mommies are they're the queens, literally, figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Mm-hmm.
the times that we do get to spend, and obviously I'm in a similar boat. You know, the time that I have, my son is. Oh, happy birthday to your son! He just turned 4.
Thank you.
My son is turning 5 next month, and obviously there's a lot more time to spend because with them because you know maybe you're not out, you know, hanging out with your friends because of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is a silver lining. This pandemic is that has we have more time for our children. So like you said, it's just important to be
Yeah.
present.
Yeah, one additional thing is like we go to Waffle House, just daddy and son. We go to Waffle House almost every Sunday morning. I would say
Mhm,
maybe at least every other week, and it's our thing. He's like, Daddy and I are going to Waffle House, and when we go in, obviously we go there so much, we know the staff and what have you. So for his birthday, I didn't call ahead or anything like that, but we walk in, and it was like, it's his birthday, and like the whole staff is like wishing him happy birthday. He feels so great about himself. And that's what and that didn't cost me anything. It was, it was free just
mhm,
because of the relationships you form. Similar when we go to the butcher, because when we're doing smoke like grill, we go to the butcher so often to pick up ribs or what have you. They know him. They're like, oh, Mr. Dallas is here, treating him like VIP. These are things that,
mhm.
you know, uh, it's not in the description of a father, right? It's that these are things that just being around and like exposing him to what you do leads to, and so I think that's really important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
So we're going to switch gears here, and now we're going to go to which is fastly becoming the most popular part of this podcast. It's 21 questions. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to rattle off 21 questions, rapid fire style. So it's going to be either this or that, and just answer it.
Got it.
Okay. Red or purple?
Purple.
Would you rather be hot all the time or cold all the time?
Cold.
Benz or Beamer?
Neither.
Oh no, you got.
I
It's
cannot.
funny. I knew. It's funny. I knew you were gonna say that too. I knew you were gonna say that. You got
I
to pick
can't.
one.
I'll pick Benz because I cannot stand BMW drivers on the road. BMW and Audi drivers are the worst drivers on the road. Period.
All right. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke Zero. I
My,
used to
my
be
man.
Pepsi. Coke. Coke. I used to actually be a Pepsi guy. Coke. Yeah. Also, they were fine. So
All right.
Coke.
Now, good answer. Good answer. All right. So this is a Philly specific question. Abner's or Larry's?
Adams. No question.
Marvel or DC?
I would say Marvel, but that Zack Snyder director cut looks insane. I'll stick with Marvel
But it's Marvel. Amory or Sierra?
though. Anne Marie.
Russell Wilson's gonna be mad. Uh,
Me and Russell, we got some problems right now.
Miami or Vegas?
Vegas, the gambling aspect of it is too great.
Duke or North Carolina?
North Carolina.
Oh, and by the way, I asked the Miami Vegas question to everybody because to me, there are Miami people and there are Vegas people. And one day I'm going to have a podcast where I unpack all of that. But that's one of my favorite questions. Would you rather go to the Super Bowl or Game 7 of the NBA Finals?
Well, I've had the privilege of going to the Super Bowl and watching my team win. Go Hawks! So I'll say
That's a
Game Seven.
flex.
Go. I'll say Game Seven NBA Finals because I haven't done it.
Bon Jovi or Aerosmith?
Bon Jovi.
Red wine or white wine?
Red. Big Cabernet guy.
First take or undisputed?
Oh gosh.
But
I'll go with undisputed. Max Kellerman just be saying like, oh my gosh.
Moet or Moet or Vu?
Vouv.
Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas?
Killer Cam Chancellor. But Earl, don't come for
Filet
me.
mignon,
Don't come for me. Don't come for me.
filet mignon or porterhouse?
Uh, I'll do Porterhouse.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter. They have different needs, but Twitter. Yeah, that's it.
Mar- Martin or living single?
Martin. Martin.
Desus or Mero? This question is unfair.
The Dominican one is uh, thesis.
Mero.
Mara. I always for
No, the
some
Dominican
reason
one is Mero.
I always get them confused for their names just always together. I
So which one you picking?
think that was Mero. Was that Mero? Is it
Oh,
Mero? Yeah.
Desus is from our hood.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Mero's hilarious. I mean, they're both hilarious. I like them both. I like them both. Both hilarious.
Last two questions: Fat Joe or Jadakiss?
Come on. I'm a Fat Joe guy,
All right.
even though I rock
Last
with Fat
one: Joffrey Baratheon or Ramsey Bolton?
I actually, I was a fan of Joffrey, so I'm gonna go with Joffrey. I thought Joffrey was misunderstood.
Yeah, you were like the only person in the world that was a fan of his.
I thought he was misunderstood.
Terrible. You're like, oh, you're gonna miss Joffrey. Like, no, he won't.
Yeah,
I still
listen.
don't miss him. And he's been dead for
He
10 years.
was.
Well, not 10 years.
One thing about the reason I like them is that I am a big fan of characters who cause such a visceral or their reaction is so significant that yeah, Joffrey, I wish I could say the same thing about Tariq, but I just can't stand him. So
I should have asked you. Actually, bonus question: Angie Valdez or Tasha St. Patrick?
I'm gonna go with. I guess I'll go with. I guess I'll go with Angie. Tasha, to me, Tasha was one of the biggest villains on the show.
She's a very underrated villain.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
I actually think she's the downfall of Ghost, but that's another story for another day.
yeah. He wanted to get
All
out the
right,
game
so
earlier, and
thank you
she
for
was like,
playing.
"No, we're gonna keep going."
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Power, but uh, all right. So that's 21 questions. Thank you for playing. Moving on to so in January of 2020, you know,
Mhm,
the one of the 2 months of 2020 that were completely in the toilet. We were both in Vegas for
mhm,
CES.
mhm,
Clearly, the world has changed a lot since then.
mhm,
Uh, what have you learned? You kind of alluded to this earlier with spending more time with your children, but maybe
mhm,
from a professional standpoint, or it
mhm,
could be personal as well. What have you
mhm.
learned during this pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I give talks about leadership in a pandemic or leading in a pandemic. I've learned more about leadership in this past year than I have reading any of the 50 million leadership books that, frankly, all say the same thing. The one thing that I talk a lot about is there is no job description that I'm aware of that I've ever come across that has a bullet point devoted to yes, we also want you to be a leader in a pandemic or unusual circumstances. You usually have lead your discipline, manage a group, but leadership I've rarely seen really defined. And what I've told my team and told mentors or mentees and peers around the industry is this: um, a lot of leadership, as you probably know, is really management. And there are a lot of in our industry. There is a lot of great office and office culture. free for many agencies, many ad tech places, free lunch, candy, sodas, dogs, this, that, and other. The physical environment of the workplace is a perk for an employee, a great one, a great one, young and vibey and what have you, great people. And I think a lot of leaders in general uh, uh, rely on the physical environment as a tool that's used to help them lead. Uh, but the question I had to ask myself, and I asked my team of leaders, what happens when you remove that? And by remove that, I mean snatch away this physical environment where people went to be comfortable and enjoy one another, enjoy the person at the office. Now they're in their home office, many who don't have a home office, by the way. Um, and simultaneously, at the very same time, where, especially if you're in a smaller city, where your opportunities might have been limited. You're in Philly. You well know there's probably a handful of agencies there. I worked in an agency in Philly. There's a handful of agencies or ad tech companies in Atlanta. When you're outside of New York and LA, a lot of those markets are smaller. And so when you remove the physical environment and then you add in a what was a lake, now an ocean of opportunity, because now the Googles, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Oracles, the Salesforces, every ad tech company on the Lumascape slide is now allowing remote workers. So whereas you might have had a handful of opportunities before, now you have hundreds of opportunities nationwide. So you remove the physical environment and you add in and enlarge the opportunities that an employee has, then that phrase of people do not leave companies, they leave managers or leaders is not a catchphrase any longer. It really is true. So that's what I had to ask myself. I had to ask myself, if we remove that physical environment and we add in this ocean of opportunity, then the light is on me as a leader to lead. And why should this person, who, by the way, unfortunately is probably dealing with not, the social unrest, the pandemic, and in fact, a lot of people have lost loved ones and friends. Why should they listen to anything I have to say? Why should they follow me? Why should they care what I have to say? And that's where I learned about leadership. That's where I had to self reflect and say, well, why am I saying, emailing, doing the things that I'm doing, um, if it's not putting the people first? And so there's been many times where I'll give you I'll give you a couple examples. One is, there's been, I send a Friday email to my team, and by the way, none of the views expressed here are from my company or whatever. All that disclaimer.
The views
So
expressed by Morris Martin, not
yeah,
necessarily
views
the views of
expressed, blah
Moxie
blah
or
blah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, okay.
all that stuff. Yeah, get that out the way. But I send a Friday email to my team updating them about the nature of the business, and then usually I have some things I need them to do, like some training, maybe performance reviews, things of that nature. But there's been several times over the past year where I went to draft, and I usually spend all week drafting this email because I have different thoughts. And there's been a couple of times that I either decided not to send an email, or I told them whatever, in so many words, whatever I had to tell you this Friday based on what's going out in the world doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Take the time back, the 15, 20 minutes that you were going to take to read this email, go be with your family. And I didn't know how that was going to go over. Right? These aren't emails you usually see. And the feedback that I've gotten was like, you you have a sense of the moment. And that was critical to me, because
You read the room.
I read the room. I read the room. And the greatest thing that I can do is have a temperature, know the temperature of my team. One of the greatest pieces of feedback that I've gotten, and this was recently in my entire career, was I have uh, I have the ability to give people the information that they need when they need it and when they're able to best absorb it. When I read that, when someone emailed that and I read it, it blew my mind because that's not in a leadership book. That's not in anyone's job description. That's just for me. Just it's very simple. It's like how can I ask you? And I profusely thank my team almost every week for just coming in and opening up their laptop with all that's going on in the world. And there's moments in time that is just not, it doesn't make sense to me to ask you to do something that in this moment in time isn't all that important. I might get my hand slapped for that one, but it can be done next week. Because as I put the people, I put people first, and I really mean that. And the second thing that I did, and none of this is premeditated. This is me just thinking through things. The second thing that I did is, a lot of what I saw, and this is not my company. This is like industry wide. A lot of what you'll see and read is obviously most companies have employee resources, which is phenomenal. Everyone should make use of it. But a lot of times what will happen is you'll see people say, excuse me, talk to your manager. If you're going through something or you need a day off or whatever, talk to your manager. As a leader of over, and that's another thing. I don't use the phrasing, I'm a leader of this org. I more so speak to my team as my teammates. But I sent an email saying, obviously here's the resources available to you, but you don't have to talk to your manager about what may be going on with you. What I want you to do, because again, there's in no job description is there a bullet about how do you support someone, God forbid, lost a loved one, and they have to come into work tomorrow. There's no bullet for that. And so I said, you can talk to your manager if you want, but I want to remove that burden. Because as a manager, because here's the thing about the pandemic, we're all going through it at the same time. It might affect people differently, but we're all going through it at the same time. So how can I ask a manager or someone to talk to their manager when their manager is going through this similar thing? And so what I did is I said, I want to remove that burden from the manager and put it on me, because that is leadership. That is me saying, yes, you could go talk to your manager, but I didn't train my managers for this. So what I want you to do is obviously use the resources available to you, but come talk to me if you need to. I'm not saying talk to your manager is deflecting the responsibility, in my opinion. It has to be me. If I am truly embodying what I believe leadership to be, it is come talk to me. And I'm not an expert, by the way. I'm going through my own stuff. But if I'm going to be the leader of this team, or that's what I have to do. And so that is, and I can cite so many other things, but in the interest of time, that's leadership to me. And the sort of last thing I'll talk about, which I think is really, really important for me from a career advice perspective, is I spent the first half of my career with one goal in mind: be the smartest person in the room. Because I thought being the smartest person in the room was what I was supposed to do. And that's not to say that I was
That
ever
gets
the
so
smartest
many
person.
people in trouble.
That's not to say, by the way, I was ever the smartest person. I'm sure I wasn't. But the people that I admired were highly, highly intelligent folks. And when they were in the room presenting, phenomenal presenters. And so I wanted to be that. And I felt to be that, I needed to be the smartest person in the room. And so I spent my first half of the career doing that, or trying to do that. Be the smartest person in the room, come up with ideas, product ideas, multi-million dollars ideas, be valuable myself. Spent the half of my career doing that. Then I had a moment, and that moment was, wait a minute. When I started teaching and coaching and mentoring and empowering a team to know what I know and learn from my mistakes, and I made that mental switch, and I realized I'm far more valuable to any organization if I am not the smartest person in the room. Now that's crazy. I'll use a phrase from Pastor Mike from FCBC. Let the church hear it again. Let me say that again. I realize I am far more valuable to any organization by not being the smartest person in the room, but rather empowering the people in the room around me, my team, to be the smartest people they can possibly be. Because I'm only one person. I tell people this all the time. I only have or had so many ideas, so many multi-million dollar revenue generating ideas. But if I'm able to empower, if I work a 30-year career, let's say, over 100 people, I've had an impact on their career to make them the smartest people, to make them the best possible person at their job. I'm far more valuable doing that than me being the person. Now, the consequence of that is security. You have to have a sense of self awareness and self worth and be secure in yourself to do that, because people will look at you that don't understand leadership whatsoever, will look at you and question because they're not happy with themselves. They may question, what do you do? If you're not the star of the show, what do you do? Right? Because we're wired to think you have to be the star of the show. Well, I could be the star of the show when I have groomed and built a team that leads us to an immense amount of success. That's being the star of the show. It's not, it doesn't have to be me. That is not something that is easy to comprehend as you trying to do that or people viewing you. Your team knows it. I believe my team knows it because they know that I'm not going to step on their toes. Or, I have the privilege of having several data and tech disciplines under my charter. They would, quote unquote, wash me. They would laugh at me if I tried to tell them, use this versus that, or if I dare stepped in the room and tried to tell them something that they are in fact experts in, then that's not my job. That's not my job. My job is to clear all the hurdles and obstacles for them to be the best possible person and them be the smartest person in the room. That's what I feel my job is, if that helps.
No, I totally agree. I have a similar, as someone who's director of performance media and in charge of managing people. I tell people that it's my job to put you in the best possible position to succeed. And to piggyback on what you said about being the smartest person in the room, so for me, it's being the smartest person in the room is not as important as identifying who the smartest person in the room is.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you know who that is, then you can figure how what you do fits with them. Because if you're just trying to beat everyone in the room, like, you may end up, the energy that you're going to take trying to beat
Mm-hmm.
someone who you may not be able to beat could be better used somewhere else. Figuring out how
No
to collaborate that
one,
person, or instead of just saying, well, no, I got to be better than him, or I got to be better than her, or I got to be better than them.
no one's gonna follow you. No one's gonna follow you. You're gonna be on an island, and um, and your use. I firmly believe this. Your use has a capacity restriction. It's finite. And I tell people all the time, there's only one of me. I can only be in one meeting at a time. But if I can empower 100 people that I come across, whether they work for me or they're a peer in the industry, and my impact is felt. It's similar to the best analogy, or not the best analogy, but an analogy I can use is the coaching tree in the NFL, right? Maybe not a Belichick per se, because he is the smartest person in the room, but his coaching tree is terrible. But Andy Reid's coaching tree, right? There are certain coaching trees where you're like, those are great coaches, but then you look up the line and you see who they worked for, and you're like, he his impact to the National Football League is far greater based on what he's proliferated around than he is individually. And so I firmly believe that in this industry, and not just my company, in this industry, if I can have an impact, but without the validation, without the awards, no one even needs to know. But I know. I know when I see someone that I call up from the ranks and have an opportunity for them. I know when I see someone that I've mentored in this industry get promoted at a different company, and I call them and said, "You did the damn thing. That's you." But I know a small piece of me is like, I'm so glad I was a part of that person's journey and process, and not take any credit whatsoever for it, and not expect any credit for it. That's to me the highest level, or one of the higher levels of leadership. And it's so rare. This is not something that's common. It's a very, very rare thing, I think, because I don't see it that often. And so, that's my thoughts on that.
Two
Sure,
questions before we wrap up.
sure.
What would you tell 21-year-old Morris Martin?
Oh man, probably the biggest mistake that I made, and this is just because I didn't have any guidance, or financial guidance. I would have saved a lot more money early on. I had a great run in my 20s, but spent entirely too much money on frivolous things. Um, and so I would have definitely saved some money. I would have also told myself to buy Tesla when I was going to buy Tesla at $20. And you remember this because I was screaming. We were in an investment group and I was screaming at people to buy Tesla at $20. And I'll never forget that I was in E Trade and I had my finger on the button. And for some reason, I was just like, $20 a share is a little expensive. And I didn't buy it. And I didn't buy it. So I would and I would be like a multimillionaire. Well, no, I would. I probably would have sold it and did some frivolous thing with it. But I would have said be much more financially educated, which my son will be. I've been tossing around the idea of opening up a Robinhood account. I mean, he's only 4, but I saw Robinhood looks like a video game. So I think at some point I want to open up, my account in Robinhood and kind of start teaching him a little bit about like the green
Mhm.
goes up means great, red means bad. But I think he's going to start crying if he sees the red, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I would tell myself
Yeah.
just I would tell myself be much more financially astute early in my professional career.
Okay. And last question. What don't people know about Morris Martin that they should?
You kind of I don't know if I think you know this, and that probably was why one of the 21 questions was this, but people do not know how big of a Bon Jovi fan I actually am. I've been to 6 or 7 Bon Jovi concerts. Um, one acoustic concert that was like an intimate setting or whatever, which was hilarious because some lady that apparently had some dealings with Bon Jovi younger in his career came there as a much older woman and was like, Bon, it was the whole thing. So I'm a huge it was really awkward. I'm a huge John Bon Jovi fan, mostly because of my older sister. So I go to as many of his concerts or the band's concerts as possible. And I also am a huge movie buff, particularly in the late 80s and 90s. I'm talking like, the Rocky Rocky movie set. Um, Roadhouse, I just watched again, which is highly rewatchable. That movie will be timeless. Top Gun, big Tom Cruise fan as well. So yeah, that might not be that well known about me.
All right, well, Morris, thank you for the time. This conversation was excellent. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I really enjoyed our conversation. As I said earlier, you are appearing on the latest episode of Dads Just Don't Understand, the Will Smith show on Instagram, so you can check that out. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug?
Um, I never have things to plug. I gotta come up with like something. But no, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to you for this opportunity. The last few episodes, all of the episodes rather, have been great to see some of the talent that we have amongst our network. And I just hope that everyone
Hmm.
remains safe. And I also will extend the invite, whether that be through a LinkedIn connection or what have you. If anybody wants to, quote unquote, wax poetic about leadership ideology, I'm more than happy to have those type of conversations because I think that's one thing that we in my team has probably heard me say. I'm not scared to say I don't know something, and I'm not scared to seek out information from others. I think that's one of the problems that we have in professional life. People aren't vulnerable enough to just say, "Hey, you've done something that I haven't done. I'd like to know more about it. Can you impart and create wisdom and create those genuine relationships?" And I don't think we do that enough. I certainly try to, and it doesn't mean that you're weak or not qualified for something that you're trying to do. It means that you're seeking out opportunities to learn, and that's what I'm always trying to do, whether that be through books, network connections, what have you. So if I can be a connection to anybody and something that I've said inspires or motivates you to want to hear more about my thoughts on it, I'm more than happy to do so. But if there's things that I may have made a mistake upon, then feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk and learn about it myself.
All right, Morris. Well, thank you again. And if you like what you heard and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to Let the Minutes Reflect. We're available on all podcast platforms. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Let the Minutes. That's Let the Minutes. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Sean with the W underscore. You can follow Midtown Mo on Twitter and Instagram at Midtown Mo, but you have to go through the vetting process first. Uh, but
No, the thing about that is I did I did make my profile public temporarily for the show Dads Don't Understand. It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying that random bots, random people were following me, and I'm like, and obviously my social media features a lot about my son, if not almost exclusively about my
yeah.
son. I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
It was just terrifying.
Mhm. So you can follow also follow 718 on Instagram and Twitter as well. Or and if you like this podcast, please give us a positive rating and a five star review on Apple Podcasts or your whatever podcast app that you use. So for Morris Martin, I'm Sean Hardy. Thank you for listening.